Now then, I have no idea who this person is. They emailed me 4 months ago. Now, that's how long my waiting list is for free palm reading. So if you've just emailed me, well, you've got about that long to wait. I am sorry, but the list is very long and I'm a busy guy. So I'm going to find out a few things about this person's palm and I'm going to bring them to light, and everything I discover is all that's displayed in the palms only. So one of the first things that I notice about this palm, and that's often the thing that really needs investigating, is this sort of gouge in this person's left and right palm. So I'm going to be looking into that. You can see it there as well. I'm going to look into their sun line, their Apollo line, because when they originally emailed me, they were interested in the sun line, and that's how they found me on YouTube. It's stronger on... There's a lot of differences between the left and the right, so I'm going to explain what that means there. We've also got a bit of a square going on here. We don't see that same formation here. There's some clear differences between the left and the right hand in general. There's also this line here, this sort of attachment line on the left hand only that creeps in and travels up towards Apollo, and we don't see that on the right hand. But what they wanted to know, they told me that they were 40 years old, they are right-handed. I know that they're right-handed anyway, and I'm going to explain at the end of this video how I came to the conclusion that they are in fact right-handed, even though I had no prior knowledge. I know they told me here, but I'm going to explain my little tip, how to determine if someone is right-handed just by looking at their palm. So stick around at the end of the video to see that. So they're interested, that's my spelling by the way, to know about career, relationships and health. They're shifting into sales. Is this a good career move? Is there anything else I need to be mindful of? Bear in mind, this person sent me about 4 or 5 emails over the 5 months, and that in itself explains a few things. But the first thing I just want to clear up here is that this person is what we call a many-lined hand. And the reason for that is simple. There's lots and lots of lines. Now, when we see a hand with just sort of 3 or 4 major palmar lines, the life, the head, the heart, and perhaps the career line, well, that's, and very little else going on. We know that's an empty palm. Well, this is the opposite. A many-lined hand such as this is someone who's very anxious, constantly thinking, constantly worrying about the future, worrying in general, of a nervous disposition. And, the need to sort of send so many emails also kind of reflects that as well. So I'm going to try and provide a little bit of reassurance here, because there's obviously a little bit of worry about the future. So before I get into explaining some of the strange, and wonderful meanings of the lines in the hands, I'm going to, first of all, sort of break down who this person is, their character template, their personality traits and skills and attributes and things like that, just through looking at the shape of the hands and the fingers alone. And this is an aspect of palmistry known as chirognomy. So this person is an air hand. They have long fingers and a square palm, and we can tell that they're long fingers because if we measure the longest finger, and that's the Saturn finger, against the length of the palm, it is 7/8 of the palm's length. So we have just about an air hand, and I say just about, so what I mean by that is they're not definite to the element. There's a little bit more going on. And because we've got quite a bit of clarity here, it's worthwhile going beyond what Fred Gettings would say about this person in terms of a sort of character template. And I'm going to divulge here into David Brandon Jones and what he would say about this person. And actually, this is a bit of a mix palm right here. This is a kind of a dynamic person. I mean, we've kind of got some of the key traits of an air hand, with the kind of splayed out fingers. The lines, the major palmar lines, are very clearly marked. The fingerprint patterns are loops mostly on most of the fingers here. So that's quite a common feature of the air hand. But look at the shape of the hand, the angle of the hand, the way it kind of juts out from the wrist. We've got the angle of the thumb, the strength of the thumb, the length of the Jupiter finger in comparison with Apollo, how set the fingers are. The palm, its shape in conjunction with the wrist, it's not quite parallel. So it provides a very sort of unique character. And David Brandon Jones would say that this person is a dynamic person crossed with a lively person. And their two character traits kind of cross over here. And the overall kind of, incredibly strong thumb here is part of this person's reasons for success and failure at the same time. And what I mean by that is they want to know about their relationship. Well, in a relationship, is give and take. It takes two to tango. And if we're too dominant, there can be issues there. And with a dynamic hand, they often struggle in relationships because if they can't find someone who matches their dominance, at the same time as being able to provide that support, then this lady will end up despising them. And at the same time, it's a bit of a lose-lose, because if he can manage to kind of match that authoritative behavior, at the same time, then she will begin to feel insecure and create fights and create conflict where it's not required. So the overall struggle for the dynamic hand is maintaining a balance between the mental, the practical, the physical, the material in their life. It's about give and take. It's about understanding when to fight. Choose your battles. And the reason why I say the thumb is the cause for this is because look at the strength of this thumb. This is a champion's thumb. But at the same time, the lonely champion. So here is the ideas or the logic, and here is the willpower. And these are two terrible drawing examples. But although they are even, which is ideal, and when I say even, the length is perfect, which is actually bodes well for the problem that I've just stated. That does bode well, because it means that they are able to take things in balance and measured approach. They aren't going to do as much pushing around, but they're certainly not going to be pushed around. They're going to be able to listen and take on board information. Whether or not they will act on that is another thing, and I think that they I don't think they lose many fights. This is someone who is, I'm not trying to paint a picture of a fighter necessarily, but this is someone who has incredible determination and drive to achieve. So once they have a bee in their bonnet, once they know something is right, they will fight for it. Now, the other aspect about the dynamic kind of aspect about this person is that they're not really all that into material gain, and that is also noted by the headline and the way it kind of it reaches right down into actually quite a low place in lunar, and it doesn't quite reach the same area on the left hand. It's a bit lower on the right, and that to me signifies this person is lower in mood than they have been. They've become at the time that this picture was taken a bit lower in mood. They're potentially a little bit depressed at the moment. So dynamic hands have there's a restlessness about them, and that is corroborated by the incredible amount of lines all over this person's palm. And in fact, all these upward strokes here across every single phalanx of every finger, it shows adrenal burnout. This person doesn't know when to stop working. We've got a thyroid issue here, and that's, when you see 3 or more lines on the tip of Mercury, that I think is likely sort of perimenopause at this time. It's likely aging, but then it could also be because this person is they're not allowing their bodies to recuperate. I don't think there's much sort of allowance or recognition in what their body is capable of. It probably breaks down fairly often. This is another key sort of traits of the dynamic hand. There's I feel a little bit of a zinc deficiency potentially with this person, and I can see that by where there's sort of chaining under the lifeline where the Saturn finger is concerned. If you see chaining around here on the lifeline, there is some here where we don't see. Yeah, we do see that on the. Actually, it's worse on the left hand, which is a good thing in a way, because it means that this zinc deficiency is not as bad now, but it's still there a little bit, and that might be contributing to this thyroid issue. And it's all down to, I think, this person just all go. They don't know when to rest. They don't know when to stop. And that's, their thoughts included. And as I say, they're not interested in material gain. They're more interested in what they can achieve, what they can do for others. And if you notice, and it's not to an extreme degree, but the top of the palm is actually wider than the base of the palm. It's not to an extreme degree, as I say, but it's there. And this shows this is someone who's constantly thinking. The long fingers also show that. They splay outwards as well. And this is quite a social person, quite a strong communicator as well. I do think that there is they're not as strong a communicator as they once were. I think there's some sort of lacking of confidence here. And I say that because the little finger is not as long as it used to be. So that's interesting. It's actually shorter on the right hand. So the key takeaway, and really I should be saying it's at the end of the video, the key takeaway for the dynamic hand is to learn from their mistakes. Otherwise, this person will be sort of doomed to forever experiencing the frustration that they feel through, not being able to have what they want. And I think as soon as they accept, actually, that they're never going to be that kind of conventional stay-at-home partner. Maybe that's not what they want anyway, but that is just not them. So they can't have that kind of relationship. It's just not going to work. And I think as soon as they accept that, as soon as they find someone who is very highly understanding and highly adaptable, willing to, someone who's very emotionally intelligent and able to have very emotionally sort of aware conversations, I don't think this person is ever going to, be happy unless they can find someone like that, unless they're fully aware of, actually they just, in order to have a relationship, this person needs to be able to find someone who's just willing to accept them for who they are, not trying to make any changes. I could say that about anyone, really, and that's true for anyone, but this isn't someone who, should change or can change. None of us should change for anyone else anyway, but this is certainly someone who cannot be tamed. Maybe they like the idea, maybe I could be getting this all wrong, but maybe they like the idea of being a sort of stay-at-home mum. It's not going to happen. This is not for them. And now this marriage line here that we see here reaching up, they call it a marriage line. A better name for the line is an attachment line or a relationship line. We see it on the left hand, but we don't see it on the right. We don't see any. We've got a slight one here. And that's about the age of this person that they are at around about now. So I wonder if they are in a relationship around about now. But this idea does seem to curve upwards a little bit, right up onto Mercury. This idea, this feeling of, what they want, which is shown in the left hand here, because the left hand shows us what's internal about a person. It shows us really what this person wants, what this person desires. I feel that they desperately want a relationship, and this longing to find their person will sort of solve all of their unhappiness in the world. That's kind of what I'm getting from this, because Apollo, it reaches right up into Apollo, and this is the place of joy, peace, happiness, prosperity, stability. It's what makes us shine. And it's sort of showing me that this is what they want, this is what they feel will help and solve all their issues. And then the right hand shows us what's external, the practical, the material. It shows us the same scenario, but in the physical. And we see here a very different picture. We don't see the same, this reaching right up onto Apollo. What we actually see on the right hand is a short but deep, so this is still a meaningful relationship. The length of an attachment or relationship line doesn't really correspond to the length of the relationship. It's how strongly this relationship impacts us. So the length that might have some bearing on the length of the relationship, but that will depend person to person. What we do see are upward strokes rising up right up onto Mercury. So these are known as children lines. I wouldn't say that these are necessarily children. They could well be pets. It's interesting because it could be that this person got involved with someone, settled down, had some pets, and and then this person left them, or perhaps they're still together. I don't know, but I think these are actually pets. Could be wrong. Let's have a look at the other areas of the palm. Now, underneath Mercury, the Mercury finger, we see what's known as a family ring, and an island here shows at least one child. And the other family ring is located at the base of the thumb, where the thumb meets the palm. And we can see again at least one island here as well. You could say that that's two. So the potential here for two children at least. And again, that's not to say that they have two children. The potential, these could well have been two miscarriages. So palmistry is really fickle business in terms of children in that respect. So, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this person has at least one child, possibly two. That's about as accurate as I can be on that front. Sometimes, children can be seen on the fate line, and they can be seen by these tiny little flicks that come upwards, improvement lines or effort lines, directly affecting a person's fate and life forevermore. Actually, you don't see that on every person's hand, and it depends on the individual as to how that information is displayed. And with a many-lined hand, it's just very, very difficult, because what would normally affect someone to a very small degree affects someone with such a nervous and anxious disposition to a much greater degree. And actually, there's a lot of digestion issues because of this stress and anxiety and constant worry, constant thinking ahead, thinking of the future. So it's very important that this person tries to manage these thoughts and potentially unrealistic thoughts as well, because a headline that reaches this low down into Lunar is the place of imagination, escape, fantasy even, unrealistic thoughts. And whilst a headline that curves this nicely shows a highly creative person, and this is certainly someone who's highly imaginative because it's connected with this well-developed lunar mount, it does mean that there is a tendency here to think about unrealistic thoughts. So they are interested in their career, their relationships and health. I've already covered relationships a little bit here. But health, career, let's get into that a little bit. I think things are going to go well for this person in terms of career, because actually we see a lot more strength on the right hand than we do the left. And that is because if we take a look here, you can actually see a fish right here. And this is, I want to get a bit more specific here. I don't pay all that much attention to the kind of intricate, unique, specific, isolated palmar markings that Indian palmists pay a lot more attention to. There is certainly a profound and deep meaning to this. But what I really pay attention to is this. This for me, so I've got a slightly different interpretation on the fish, particularly this fish. This is not a square, this is a diamond. it's a protective sign that's it's more upright, it's more structured, it's aimed, upwards like this, which is more fortunate. It builds a stronger foundation, it's got stronger roots, it's more prosperous. So, that square or that rectangle has been turned on its side a little bit, and it's got a point upwards. Point upward strokes are always good in palmistry. So when we have two lines kind of diagonally coming together and creating a point like this, it's a good sign. It shows there's more than one aspect coming together to strengthen. And we see it's kind of got good strong roots as well, quite literally here and here. So here we have a fish, but it's pointing upwards. It's in between Apollo and Mercury, and this is the place of, as I've already said, joy, happiness, the sunshine in a person's life, peace, stability, money, if you like, because money brings stability and security. Mercury is a place of learning. It's a place of expression and freedom, and information growth, how we communicate. Communication and expression are just so huge in the human psyche. And so this is why Apollo and Mercury are close together, because you can't really have one without the other. This entire area of the palm is how we reveal ourselves to the outside world in total, because it's what makes us shine. It's our reputation, glory, vanity, and it's our happiness, how we show how we are happy, how we express that sense of happiness, our freedom, our satisfaction. So when we have a fish that's in between these two, it kind of marries these two together, and it's showing a very fortunate sign that this person will have all they want in terms of happiness and expression. They'll have this freedom of isolation that they actually require, which is noted by the way that Mercury kind of leans away from the rest of the fingers. This is someone who values their privacy. They want alone time. And this is kind of their conundrum, because they want to be in a loving, strong, and meaningful relationship, but at the same time they require that freedom of isolation. So this is what I mean by they need a person who's very able to understand and accept them for who they are, their complex needs as a person. So this is an excellent sign. We see it on the right hand, and as I say, this is what will materialize. This is the material, the physical, the practical, whereas the left hand is more internal. So this is showing us a sign of things to come. This is an excellent sign. I do think that their shift into career sales, that career shift they're having at the moment, is not necessarily their ideal job role. I think that this person is far better suited to something much more creative that can utilize these fantastical thoughts that they have. I'm aware that's probably not a word, but this is someone who is just so richly creative. They have an abundance of imagination and a strong ability to use it. And that's what these two things mean right here. So really this person would do well in an area, I'm going to say something like set design. Actually, I think this person, I don't know if that's what they would enjoy doing necessarily, but I think this is probably someone that would work well in the art, but not being on show, if that makes someone backstage who's making things happen. They get a good sense of satisfaction out of that, and I think they're probably quite good with their hands as well. This is the angle of proficiency. And as I say, this is someone who is constantly on the I don't want to say on the go, but they don't stop. They don't stop working. They're a really hard worker, and their hands are constantly in use, and that's probably the reason for this angle of proficiency. They've got an eye of Ganesha here on the thumb. That's a nice happy sign. That's a sign of, in Indian palmistry, that there's good karma there. They were kind to animals in a past life. But the reason why I think the sun line is particularly strong on the right hand rather than the left, we again have a diamond here that starts late 40s, and it really begins to culminate around the age of 57. And we also see some squaring here as well, formed by the convergence of a major line or two. So it's not as profound, and it's a rectangle. It's, a protective sign, whereas this is, it's protective, but it's fortunate in its protection. That's the best way I can describe a diamond in palmistry. There's money involved here. That's where the protection's coming from, and it could well be as a result of this relationship here, because a success line that stems from the heart line, it can mean one of a few things. Firstly, a career in some sort of artistic field. I'm not necessarily sure that's what's happening with this person, being that they said they're moving into sales. But it can mean support to be successful from some sort of emotional kind of foundation, because it's the heart line. I'm aware the sun line does actually have its foundations from their own thoughts and ideas, as we can see it reaches up here like this. But then this is a many-lined hand, and it's very easy to read into things. But notice the sun lines, and I say plural there because the beginnings of it are strong roots here. We've got, as I say, we've got a diamond here as well. But notice how we've got two sun lines, and they fork. Here's another one, and it forks like this. Now, having one fork on the Apollo mount is a good sign. Having two, this shows this person is potentially having a property and then renting it out, and then has a separate income, has royalties coming in, more than one income, but these incomes are kind of growing exponentially. And this is likely due to this person's ability to, we're coming back to the thumb here, to implement their many creative and imaginative ideas and just action them, because they have such a strong amount of ideas. But not only that, they have the willpower, the drive, the determination, probably at the expense of their own physical body, to implement them, to action them. This is not a person to leave loose ends. This is a person to come up with lots and lots of ideas, but actually see them all through. This is quite something. And this, again, is probably part of the reason why this person may have had or is still having relationship issues, because we can't have it all in life. I mean, it's extremely difficult to, isn't it? There's only so much time in the day. And this person spends a lot of their time implementing their many ideas. Now, I've already spoken a little bit about health with this person, saying, zinc deficiency, and I believe that that's resolving itself. We've got some sort of thyroid issue. There is adrenal burnout as well, but there's also this here, and there's a couple of different interpretations here. This is the area of the bladder, and I'm wondering if in fact it's just so gouged in, and you can see by the shadow there's a recess in the skin itself. This is not a flexure line, is it? I mean, look at it. So I'm thinking it's one of two things. Firstly, we've got a direct influence from Pluto, just about. This is an unforeseen event that was there was no way to change what happened here. This is one interpretation, one of two, by the way. And it struck this person's fate at an early age. There was something that happened to this person, and I'm going to say, it's hard to say, maybe about the age of 12 or so. And it changed their life forever. It was a shocking incident. And I think part of the reason why they suffer with anxiety may well stem from this incident, whatever it might be. So if we look at the lifeline, just to corroborate this, we can see, now this is the age of here's about 12, and there's a lot of chaining going on. There's a lot of difficulty throughout this person's early life, in particular from this age up to around about the age of 18. So let's be a bit more accurate. That's about 12, that's about 18. And you can see the chaining here. You know, by chaining I mean islands banded together. And it shows great stress, environmental difficulty. It could be problems at school. But before all that, we've got here this strong ambition line. In terms of ambition, coming back to this, the headline, look at where it starts. Incredibly high up on Jupiter. And that's always a sign, we don't see it so much on the right hand, but it's always a sign of ambition. This person is constantly thinking about how they can better their future. That's the left hand, so what's internal. The right hand shows actually a little bit more sensibility. We've got a little, there's less impatience. There's more attachment to the life. This person actually takes a bit more care and consideration about their life than what the left hand is showing, because a gap like this shows a detachment between the mind, the life energies, and the thoughts. So it shows that their thoughts, their thinking is not connected with their life energies, but it also shows a radical way of thinking. This person thinks very differently to most people, and that is coincided, that's corroborated by this headline as well. But the fact that it's a bit closer on the right hand, it shows this person has become more grounded over time. And there's another ambition here as well. And actually there's a teacher square here on the Jupiter mount, which it shows this person is, there's a kind of a leader role here about this person. And that's also evident by the fact that we have here a long Jupiter finger and a short Apollo. This is not someone who enjoys the limelight, but this is probably someone who has people come up to them with their problems and asks to be delegated tasks. This is someone who falls into a kind of a leadership role unconsciously, without really meaning to. So I say they've lost confidence. I think this is a complex one because the Jupiter finger is actually longer on the right hand than it is the left, but the Mercury is longer on the right than it is the left. Complex, isn't it? Because Jupiter shows us confidence, it shows us ego. Ego has grown, this is good. So their confidence in their abilities has grown, but their confidence in themselves has not, if that makes sense. Their self-esteem, their self-worth has ever so slightly reduced, but their confidence in their own abilities has grown. So they might not be confident in what they say, but they're confident in what they do. The positioning of the heart line is interesting as well, because although it does end, the destination of it, or begins, however which way you're reading the heart line, some people read it both ways, it's in the middle of Jupiter and Saturn. I was going to make a point about how this differs, the destination differs on the left and right hand, but actually it doesn't so much. But there is a fork on the right hand, a faint fork, resting up on Jupiter, whereas we see that on the left hand as well. But overall, the end of the heart line on the left hand forks a bit more than on the right. And also the direction that the heart line takes is a little bit more, it's not as smooth flowing. There's a slight sort of angle where the river bends twice, whereas on the right hand it's not quite that way inclined, and that shows, I feel like there's been some serious disappointment emotionally speaking with this person in their life, and they're suffering. So there's a line here that connects and crosses over, and I'll show you here like this. And Beryl Hutchinson said that one of the signs, one of the warnings in palmistry is when we see the heart, the head and the lifeline connected, and it's a sign of shock, physical shock, and this person hasn't yet processed what's happened to them. There's a delayed shock here, and I feel like this could have been an emotional shock of some sort. We see it here as well. I think this happened at 24 for this person, whatever that shock was, and I'm not sure they've dealt with it so much, and that might have reduced their self-esteem, whatever that was. So I digress. The other thing that this could mean, I can't believe on a tangent I just went on, is that this could actually be some injury to the bladder, quite simply. And this could be the other sign of shock. You know, when you see a star in palmistry that's completely isolated, it's very profound. On a many-lined hand, you won't really see anything that's isolated. Everything seems to be connected. But the headline here, there is a bit of a cross where it ends. And it's, for me, it's profound enough. It kind of looks like there's a bit of a, you know, a temple here, a house kind of. But for me, I feel like this shock is sometimes quite literally a shock to the head, physical shock to, you know, a blow to the head. I don't know. I'm wondering if this person has been in some sort of accident, and this is as a result of it. This, you know, the convergence here of lines, where all the three lines merge and meet. I'm wondering if, in fact, this has something to do with this unresolved, undealt with shock. So money-wise, I think this person's going to do very well. But at the same time, I don't think money is all that important to them. Interesting how a lot of the palms I see where people do very well financially, money doesn't actually mean all that much to them. So I think that that's a good sign in any case. Relationship-wise, it's about understanding who you are as a person and learning to manage expectations. It's about accepting who you are, accepting who your partner is, whoever that might be, and learning to pick your battles. If you feel that you're starting to dislike your partner because they're not quite dominant enough, identify those feelings and emotions and try to understand, or, you know, take into account that perhaps that person isn't necessarily not being authoritative enough, but they are in fact trying to accommodate your complex needs. It's give and take. It's about managing the practical, material, emotional. At the same time, you need a partner who's very emotionally aware, understanding, and has strong diplomacy skills. There could be loss in the family at the age of about 49. So it's extremely important that around about this age to spend a lot of time with those close to home. This will make more sense towards that time. I don't want you to worry. It might not be that, but there is a stressful incident around that time relating to the home. So it's important to spend more time at home during that kind of period. I do think this career move that this person is making is a good idea. Not necessarily the ideal job for them, but I think this person, being so dynamic, is able to fit in and adapt to just about any role, and work extremely hard, and, you know, probably do it better than anyone else. So that was something to be mindful of anyway, at around about the age of 48, 49 maybe. Now then, as promised, how did I know that this person was right-handed, even though, they did tell me, which is a bit of an annoying example to provide here. It's all in the thumbs. So if you look at the left thumb, notice how it's a little bit more pointed than the right. The right provides a squared off impression here. It's rounded, and although it's at an angle, you can sort of see how it's more square than the left. And a person with a more square right thumb than the left is almost always right-handed. So there you go. I've never revealed that one on my channel before, but that's true. That's how you can tell who someone is right-handed. And actually, in palmistry, I don't really subscribe much meaning to the left and right-hand dominance. That's just me. I've never found it's worked or had any relevance to my readings. I always read the right hand as the material, the external, the practical, and the left as internal. That's just me. Every palmist has their own way of doing things, and if and when that kind of crops up as an issue, I'll reassess. It's about trial and error. Deduction. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. I want to know your thoughts on this person. Generally speaking, they know themselves actually very well, and I think a lot of what I've said they already know. All the fingers are kind of aligned here. There's a lot of alignment. I mean, the only thing that's out of alignment is this sort of trajectory, really. But that's just this need to just be alone, really. Their need to express themselves is in isolation, and they will likely travel at about the age of 55. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.